What's up, everybody? This is Blake, and today I'm going to do a tour of my ping collection. So I just got these two trays on the top shelf of my grow rack. I'm going to pull those out so we can get a better look. All right, got the trays pulled out. We'll go through everything that I've got here. So there's just these two 10 by 20 trays that I've got. On the left, I've got most of my mother plants. And then on the right, I have a lot of propagations and leaf pullings, as well as a few mother plants in there too. So just jump right into things. So the first one right here, this is Pinguicula Aylerzi cultivar Victoria. I got this one from Curious Plant. It's got a nice compact rosette. I'm a big fan of those types. It gets some great pink coloration as well. Next to that, I've got a rather sad-looking Pinguicula Pureaway. So this is a pretty common cultivar that's out there, and it normally looks pretty pink and sparkly, but this is kind of sitting at the edge of my grow light, so it's not getting ideal light for it to get those great pink pigmentations. And I've also dumped this one out a couple of times. You can see the roots are kind of all over the place. It probably needs a bit of a repot into so it's sitting upright in a better position, but that's what that one looks like. Next one over here is a really little guy, but super interesting. So this is Pinguicula wamavensis, and this is another compact rosette forming Pinguicula. But what's interesting about this is last winter, when it went into its succulent phase, it started to crest, and it was looking kind of like a brain. It looked really bizarre. But then once it emerged from its winter rest period, it had all of these rosettes forming around kind of in a cluster. It's kind of just like a big mass of pings. You can see a couple of spots that look kind of dead. I've tried to separate this guy out a couple of times, not very successfully because everything is just jam-packed so tight in there. But I did make a number of leaf pullings and use that to seed a ping rock that I'm working on. And I think I might have some bigger wamavensis. Actually, we'll just jump over to the propagation tray where I have some better looking wamavensis specimens. So these are some pullings that I took last year. They're actually coming along really well. They've picked up a lot of speed since I've put in this tray. You can see there's, let's see, 3, 6, 7. Wamavensis is, especially when it goes into succulent phase, it's really, really prolific in popping out a lot of pulling babies. Right up above that, we have Pinguicula BCP Goldeneye. So this is the ping that's known for having a really pale yellow flower. It actually looks a lot like the foliage. This one hasn't flowered for me quite yet, but hopefully it's about that size right now, so hopefully sometime soon it puts out a flower for me. Right next to that, we've got Pinguicula gracilis. So this one, you can see there's a few spent flower stalks on it. I probably need to clean it up a little bit. It's divided a few times, so there's actually maybe 5 or 6 plants in there. Probably could do with a bit of separation, and there's also a little leaf pulling baby right next to it. Gracilis I really like because it has it has these white flowers, but they're on really short flower stalks, so it looks really compact when it's in bloom. Next up, this is a Pinguicula gigantea red flush, or red blush. This is the famous variegated gigantea. I got it as a pulling, and unfortunately I think this thing has pretty much reverted. It's looking very green. It didn't have a ton of variegation when I first got it, but I've been told that they get more color during the winter, and the winter time is actually when all of the variegation disappeared. So I don't really quite know what to make of that. I'm obviously just going to keep it around and keep it tagged as the red flush if that variegation ever returns, but I'm not too hopeful about that. Uh, this one is one of my absolute favorites. It doesn't look its best right now, but this is Pinguicula morinensis J, obviously of the morinensis complex. This one I love because of the veins that you get on the leaves. It's also got this great pale salmon pink color to it, but the veins are just unlike a lot of other pings that you'll see out there. Some of the temperate species of pings have pretty prominent veins, but you don't see it too often in the Mexican pings. Over here we've got a zoom out so you can see the tag. This is a pretty complex, or I shouldn't say complex, but the name is quite long. This is a hybrid from California carnivores. This is Morinensis var alba, the cultivar Malongo, and that's crossed with a cyclosecta. So you can see obviously the purple cyclosecta coloration coming through, but the Morinensis that it's crossed with, it gives it those nice big fleshy Morinensis leaves. And this one's actually in flower for me. Flower hasn't quite opened up yet, but I am looking forward to that one. Next to that, we've got a Gigantea by Moctezuma. This one gets pretty big, obviously with Gigantea in it, but Moctezuma is a species. I don't have the actual species of it, but it's one of those long kind of, looks kind of more like a Drosera capensis sundew than a Pinguicula, almost with the leaf shapes. A lot like the Aphrodites that are over there behind that, but really cool ping. And then this one is a Agnata red leaf crossed with a Marginata. This is a nice little hybrid. It gets those great red leaves from Agnata red leaf, and it stays quite small given the Marginata that it's crossed with. It's in, maybe I'll take a second to talk about my ping mix that I use. This mix I use for all of my pings. It's equal parts turfus, pumice, and perlite. Works pretty well. There's no peat or any other soil-like substances. It's an all-mineral mix. And for the most part, the pings like it. I will say, though, that it can be a bit on the dry side. So if you have species like a Marginata or Gigantea that like a little bit more moisture in the substrate, I've found that this mix doesn't work the greatest for that, and you might be seeing some of the results of the mix in how this plant looks right now. It doesn't look its best at the moment, but I think it's probably due for a bit of a repot and then put it into a more moisture retentive substrate. Right up from there, we've got 3 of the Lawiana Calcarn Red. So this is a cultivar of California carnivores of Pinguicula lawiana, and it has very intense red flowers, as the name suggests. This one hasn't flowered for me. You can see the plants are all very small. Might be a year or 2 before I actually get a flower off of these, but looking forward to it when that happens. Next to that, we just got a typical Gigantea. Looks a lot like the Gigantea Red Blush. They're almost indistinguishable, but that one's just a typical. And here we have some Marginata. So, like I was saying before, these ones like a bit more moisture retentive substrate. So I have some aquatic planting medium mixed in with my standard ping mix. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but it might come back to me. It's kind of like these small black granules that hold a bit more moisture than some of the other ingredients in my potting mix. So the Marginata seem to appreciate it. They weren't doing too great. You can actually see a casualty of the regular ping mix that they were in before. The bottom right corner, there's one that had died from you know, basically not liking its substrate that it was in. But once I swapped it out, these other ones have really taken off. And it's in flower. Right next to that, we've got two Pinguicula Aphrodites. I forget the species that are crossed to make Aphrodite, but I imagine it's similar to the Gigantea by Moctezuma. I can see some Moctezuma in there, or one of those other long, strappy pink species. But great classic cultivar, pink leaves. Hasn't flowered for me yet, but I've been taking a lot of propagations from these. And over here, this is probably one of the most interesting pings that's in my collection. This I got from Carnivoro recently, and this is Pinguicula Raspberry Blonde. This is an extremely rare cultivar of Pinguicula. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was crossed with when it was hybridized, but the flowers are out of this world when we're talking pink flowers. I mean, most pink flowers are red or various shades of purple. You got some gradation in between, but this one, you honestly just have to Google a picture of it and see for yourself. The flowers are just absolute showstoppers when it comes to pink flowers. So it's a relatively new arrival, so it's still adjusting in my mix at the moment. But hopefully, once this guy recovers and settles in, I plan on taking a lot of propagations from that and sharing that around. This guy next door, Morinensis A, I just desperately need to repot him. He does not love the substrate that it's in right now. You can see the leaves are very strongly curled and not a whole lot going on up top. So it's also in a taller pot than some of the other pings are, so there's probably some issues with moisture wicking all the way up to the top of the substrate. But the reason it's in a bigger pot is because normally the leaves on this Morinensis A kind of just drape over the edges almost. It's really quite a large plant. So just needs a simple repot into a better or more suitable substrate for it. Next to that, we've got an Ognata Red Leaf. So this one I got from Curious Plant a while ago. It's great because it's known for those really prominent trichomes on the leaves, combined with the deep red pigmentation. And when the lighting is right and it hits those leaves, it just looks like the whole thing is covered in sugar. It's a great plant, and this one's in flower. This one flowers for me very regularly. Right next to that, this one is special to me because this was actually the first ping that I ever bought. This is a Gigantea by Lawiana Red from California Carnivores. And it's in a bit of a succulent stage right now. Pings are kind of funny like that. It's May right now, which normally a lot of these would be in their summer phase, but some of their internal clocks can get screwed up from being grown indoors, and they might go dormant during the summer and active during the winter. It's kind of all over the place with these guys. So since it's crossed with Gigantea, it doesn't form a true succulent rosette, but normally when it has its summer leaves, it has these very attractive pink and salmony orange leaves that are some of my favorites. Gigantea and Lawiana Red are both great on their own, and they're even better when they're put together into this hybrid. Speaking of pings in winter phase, this is a Debratiana, all succulent. It's a pretty compact growing ping to begin with, and it's super tiny right now just because it's taking its winter nap. Next to that, this is another California Carnivores Lawiana cultivar. This is their tangerine. So the flower on this one should be a bit more tangerine colored, as the name suggests. It's still pretty small for me, but it just came out of its winter phase. And yeah, hopefully, I'm just noticing it's got some browning around the center of it, which is not great. That could be a fungal issue. Pings are known for being affected by browning heart uh, disease, which is basically a fungal infection that rots the center of it. So um, it happens a lot, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong, but the best way to counteract this is to take some pullings. So after I'm done with this video, I'm going to grab a few pullings of that just to make sure to preserve this ping here. Over here, we've got Agnata by Gypsicola. I can't remember. That actually might be what Aphrodite is. It's Gypsicola and Moctezuma. They all kind of look very similar to each other. This hybrid right here is in its winter phase, and it's been like this for a while. It actually looks like it might be splitting right now, which in my experience, when they start dividing like that, that can kind of prolong the winter rest period a bit. Next to this, we have a very cool ping. So this is Morinensis F. orchidioides. So this is a very cool variety of Morinensis that closely resembles the species Pinguicula orchidioides in its flower. They also, I believe, they grow sympatrically alongside each other in Mexico where they're native. So it may be a product of evolving together under the same environmental conditions. Who knows? But it's a very cool plant. I'd love to have the species Orchidioides one day. I've attempted at least once and was had some shipping mishaps with that, but eventually that's one of my wish list plants is to get that species in here because Orchidioides is a very, very unique species, as the name suggests, as well as with Morinensis F. orchidioides. The flowers look extremely orchid-like. I mean, Pinguicula flowers are already very ornate and somewhat orchid-like to begin with, but the lower petals on Orchidioides have this drooped appearance that really makes them look a lot like orchid flowers. And then the last one in this tray, this is Pinguicula wawapan. And it's a little awkward to record this one right now because I think it actually may be dividing. One of the leaves is kind of in a very odd position. Normally the rosette is just kind of flat and like you see in a lot of other pings, but this one, it might be in the process of dividing. Wawapan is another one that has amazing flowers. One of the things that I look for when I'm buying a new ping is what do the flowers look like. That's really one of the main reasons why I grow them. So Wawapan, if you haven't seen them, Google them. This one's unfortunately not in flower, although you can see the spent flower stalks it was earlier. And yeah, another great ping. So that's tray number 1. And let's dive into number 2 here. All right. So first up, we have, speaking of beautiful flowers, these are 3 Pinguicula onpaces. Onpa, I think, is in the Cyclosecta complex. I can't recall off the top of my head. Or no, I'm thinking of, I can't remember. Anyways, the flowers are the reason why I have this one. Just really, really beautiful flowers. Next to that, we've got 3 Pinguicula immaculatas. These are some really cool pings. They stay really small. Right now, they're in their winter resting phase, so they just look like these green little nubs with, you can see the old dried up carnivorous leaves sticking out as well, making them just look totally bizarre. These are some of the smallest pings in the genus as far as I'm aware. They don't get very large, and their flowers are also quite small as well. Similar to Gracilis in that the flower stalks aren't very tall, so it's just a very, very nice, compact growing plant. Next door, we've got a couple cyclosecta. So you can see one right now is active for me, and a few others you can probably barely make them out on the camera. There's three of them in the center of the frame here. These three are dormant, and so cyclosecta, it's an amazing species. It's really hard to beat, like the purple, the deep purple rosettes that these produce, and you can see they're great hybridizers as well. I mean, just look at that coloration. It's hard to beat that. There's a couple miscellaneous propagations in here too, kind of against the wall of the tray. I forgot what they were. I wasn't very good at labeling my propagations when I first started, so I thought they were cyclosecta to begin with, but seeing them grow up now, I'm not too sure that they are, so we'll just keep them there until we can figure out what they might be. All right. Um, Another great ping here. We have three of the Eucadoo 1713. So there's a number of the Pinguicula eucadoos. So there's 1713, and I forget what the other ones are. It's another number that starts with 17. I believe that's the site location that they're from. But they just have these amazing rosettes. I love the way that the edges of the leaves curl up. It gives them a really cool appearance. The edges contrast really well with the pinks in the leaves, and it's very pleasing to look at. Next door, we've got a couple mother plants of Pinguicula condoi and some pullings. So the main mother plant in the center here, you can see it's in the process of dividing. There's two others on the top and the bottom of the frame right now that are what the plant normally looks like under typical growing conditions. Great compact rosette. More compact rosettes, we've got Pinguicula assyriana. I was thinking that these were going to look a bit more like Wamavensis, which, remember, looks like this. But pleasantly surprised with this assyriana. I think there's a decent amount of variability in assyriana and the others in the assyriana complex. So love the pink hues on this one. All right, this whole back area here that's in frame, these are all Pinguicula Wieser, or Weser if you want the German pronunciation. This is a very common, very vigorous, great cultivar that's been around for a very long time. Got those very cute cupped edges of the leaves with the pointed tips and a soft pink hue. I mean, for me, this is what pings are all about. That's just like, when I think of a ping and what it looks like, that's kind of what I think of. And I just got tons. They're dividing like crazy. It looks like these are all just like sandwiched together, and then they're just really going like crazy. Behind that, I have another very common cultivar. This is Gina. There's a couple propagations here of Gina. There's two back there, right next to the Weser, and a couple over here as well. Behind that, I have some more. That's the Agnata red leaf. Got 5 pullings there that are doing well. We've already talked about the Wamavensis. Next to the Wamavensis, we have another classic ping hybrid or cultivar. This is Hanka. It's pretty unique. It seems the leaves are very intermediate between like the very compact rosette forming pings and, you know, something along the lines of, well, I guess Agnata, for lack of a better illustration here. It's a really prolific ping. You can see I dug one up over here to give to someone as a gift. I'm hoping to do a giveaway here soon and give away a ton of these ping propagations that I have that are just taking up too much space. Speaking of, this was the third Pinguicula Aphrodite that I ordered from Saracena Northwest. I have the other two over here. The third one, I just ripped it apart completely once I got it and just laid out all the leaves on this tray of media, and most of them struck. I actually haven't gone through to count how many propagations I have here, but there are quite a few. Pings are super easy to propagate. That's one of the reasons I love them. And then last but not least, in this back corner, we have on the left, there's a Pinguicula Lawiana tangerine pulling that I took from my tangerine plant, the one over here that looks like it has Browning heart disease. So um, looks like I already got a head start on taking a pulling from that. So I'll probably take a few more pullings and just fill up this corner. And then there's also a Gigantea by Lawiana Red, which again, that's the first ping that I ever bought. Got a pulling of it right over here. I would really love to take some time to do more ping pullings, but right now the only space that I have for these pings in my tent are these two 1020 trays. So if I could find some more room to add a third 1020 tray, I think we'll be propagating like crazy. So that's the tour of my pings. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and keep an eye out on my channel because pretty soon here I'm going to be doing a deep dive video tour on my Nepenthes collection. That collection takes up much more space than these plants do, and some of those Nepenthes are hard to get at the picture, so that one will probably be quite a bit longer than this, and I've got to go through my lowland, intermediate, and highland Nepenthes, as well as, you know, a couple miscellaneous Nepenthes such as these that I've got hanging up in my living room. So be posting a video going through the entire collection here sometime in the near future. So keep an eye out for that one.